trainers having fantastic runs. It looks like the game is about to get underway. Team preview coming in. I think Graham's team has been a lot of people's favorite over the weekend. Medicham and Mega Medicham, respectively, not what many people are expecting, but it seems to be putting a shift in for him.
Yeah, and Jonathan's team over on the right-hand side of your screen, just to go over it again, is going to be that Rayquaza, Kyogre, Metagross, Tapu Koko, Mimikyu, and Incineroar. So again, has options for Trick Room in the form of that Mimikyu. Might not want to bring it if he's afraid of that Lunala. Rayquaza, just a really strong Pokemon in this format in general, getting access to Mega Evolution, being able to deal a ton of damage. You know, we've been seeing a lot of Rayquaza this weekend with Life Orb or with Choice Bands and just do really devastating amounts of damage to their opponents. And Metagross is sort of an interesting pick as well. That's the only Pokemon on Jonathan's team that can get that can Mega Evolve. Probably used in more situations where he's facing off against those Xerneas teams where the Steel typing would be more effective, but could do some interesting amounts of damage here as well. Does get access to priority, threatens down both of the Alolan Guardians on Graham's side of the field with those Steel-type attacks. Definitely not a certainty to be left out, but probably not one of the top picks for
Yeah, I mean, if you decide to leave the Metagross on the bench, that gives you the Rayquaza that can obviously Mega Evolve as well. So it's kind of one of those interesting choices. You look at Graham's team and the way that we've seen him playing over the course of this weekend, and for him it's usually about going fast and attacking first. We saw him in the last round of Trist struggle so much with the concept of moving second after those icy wins. And even though Trick Room could be a big play for Jonathan, it's so hard to reliably set up. I don't think that's going to be the start for this turn. And we'll see exactly what we're leading off with as we open up the game. Jonathan with Rayquaza and Tapu Koko against the Medicham and Lunala from Graham. I think there's going to be a fake out in play this turn. And this Lunala in an interesting position, may be looking to try and set up on those tailwinds. If he believes that Jonathan has not even considered bringing something like the Mimikyu for Trick Room, a Tailwind could be really, really valuable for him.
It really could be, and I think that it's really interesting to call out that Graham has led this combination of Medicham and Lunala for a majority of his matches, it seems, on stream. I think he's very comfortable with this lead. He's comfortable with the options it brings him, and even though this Mega Medicham will be intimidated by the Incineroar, and I really like how Jonathan Evans, he waited to send that in until the first turn of this game. I think Graham has the option for the Tailwind, and if he wants to, he can certainly set that up.
Yep, well, we're going to see the fake out heading towards the Tapu Koko, so nothing coming out of Jonathan's side of the field after the switch this turn, and Graham setting up the Tailwind. That's what he needs to try and outspeed something like this Tapu Koko, a naturally very, very fast Pokemon indeed. This really becomes a tough turn, I think, for Jonathan. He's got the Incineroar in play. That's fantastic news. He's going to be able to land a fake out, and assuming Graham doesn't bring something like the Tapu Lele, but then he needs to capitalize with the Tapu Koko. There's certainly a few options there. Tapu Koko with a wide range of abilities for itself there, and we'll see if Graham can avoid getting hit by that. Jonathan could start buying some turns in the Tailwind with the Tapu Koko's moveset. You know, if he can fake something out and then get it out of play for a turn, could put him in an interesting position. The fake out landing on Medicham obviously can't be going after the Lunala, which is going to start attacking.
Yeah, so that Psy Shock from the Lunala will connect with that Tapu Koko. Mega Medicham will not be able to move this turn because of the fake out, and I found that really interesting that Graham was content to just leave it out on the field. You know, it's not like that Incineroar could have faked out that Lunala due to its ghost typing. The fake out was definitely going to go there, and I think he left that Mega Medicham open to be attacked by that Tapu Koko. You know, it's good information for us that it went for the Volt Switch as opposed to something like a Dazzling Gleam. That might be an indication that this Tapu Koko, maybe doesn't know Dazzling Gleam or can't hit that Mega Medicham super effectively. And maybe this is information that these trainers already know from their previous match, at which point, it makes a little bit more sense to leave that Medicham in a vulnerable position, because now it can immediately start targeting down that Incineroar with those high jump kicks or dealing damage otherwise with that Lunala, and otherwise, again, taking advantage of the Tailwind and building up that momentum.
I think the Medicham's still in a very tough position. I think switching it out could have been a little more beneficial for Graham, bringing something in that could capitalize, be a little more comfortable. Yes, high jump kick will do a lot of damage to Incineroar, but he has to be so careful that you don't want to high jump kick into a protect and lose half your health. No switching this turn, as we do see Rayquaza is going to be the choice for the Mega Evolution this game. Maybe an indicator about what's left at home. You know, we've not seen Metagross, we've not seen Mimikyu, and one Pokemon remaining would indicate a potential Kyogre from Jonathan. But this Rayquaza's probably going to have to put in a lot of work to deal the damage this turn, taking its time on this one.
Yeah, and I think a Protect is a good move here, since that Lunala, you know, might have tried to use that Z move into that Rayquaza to deal some big damage, but Medicham able to knock out that Incineroar through the Intimidate with high jump kick.
Yep.
And that's just how full of pure power it is.
Yeah, Medicham doesn't really care, just trying to get as much damage down as possible in an easy knockout on a Pokemon like Incineroar with high jump kick. The connection was a problem, and Graham's going to keep dealing damage. The Protect isn't going to save him from this menacing Moonraze Maelstrom, and that's going to be damage down on Rayquaza even while it's protecting.
It is going to be weakened, though, because of that Protect. So it might only deal maybe 30 or 40% tops onto that Rayquaza, depending on how it was trained, which I think is going to work to Jonathan's advantage. Yes, you know, he is taking damage this turn, and this could potentially ruin a Focus Sash if that's the item that Rayquaza has. But, you know, it's not going to be a KO, and this Rayquaza is certainly going to be able to fire back whatever attacks it has in this following turn. You know, it's another turn of Tailwind that's been gone, so, and he does have access to Protect, you know, in the future if he wanted to try and stall it out after this next turn. So he does have options, but I think he needs to keep that Mega Rayquaza safe, especially since the Mega Medicham on Graham's side of the field has demonstrated pretty comfortably that it doesn't care about being intimidated.
Well, Jonathan in a slightly happier position right now, I'd argue. You know, he did manage to avoid getting Menacing Moonraze Maelstrom, based, of course, on Moongeist Beam, not hitting the Mimikyu. That's important, but he does confirm his Kyogre has been left on the bench. That's something that, you know, was mentioned at the top of the show. Maybe because it's a mirror, it's not so necessary. But Mimikyu's still facing down Medicham and Lunala. Medicham definitely having the coverage options to try and beat it out there. The big concern, though, is, you know, if you don't Moongeist Beam there, you could be in trouble, as Rayquaza could start picking up some knockouts. And we'll see if Graham's called this Protect. Well,
Medicham is going to attack straight into that Protect, so he either played it really safe or, unfortunately for him, he didn't call it.
Yeah, Jonathan managing to get an attack off, in this case, a Swords Dance with the Rayquaza. That is going to make Extreme Speed a whole lot more potent. Probably going to be able to deal with the Medicham in that fashion with absolute ease. And the Tailwind does expire for Graham this turn, so he's not going to have the immediate advantage. Rayquaza may be able to just start Dragon Ascenting with that Swords Dance. Now that's not in play.
Yeah, you have to wonder what Pokemon he's going to target here, though. You know, yes, you can probably knock out that Medicham with an Extreme Speed after your attack boost, but Lunala is the bigger threat. You know, it does have the Moongeist Beam. Mimikyu does not want to be across the field from a Lunala, so I like the prioritization here. You know, get Lunala off the field, give Mimikyu a chance to attack this turn. You know, it is going to take some damage and probably lose its disguise, depending on what this Medicham did, or instead going for some chip on the Rayquaza, which is interesting given the fact that Mimikyu did decide to go for Trick Room. At least the Mega Rayquaza doesn't have to worry about the speed change as much thanks to Extreme Speed. You know, it is in its own priority tier, and that priority tier will still be moving first when you go into the turn order, but it certainly is an interesting play.
Yeah, Graham's been really punished for that double target into the Mimikyu Protect, though. That's certainly going to cause a concern, and this Swords Dance will make Extreme Speed pretty much the best option right now. Rayquaza naturally very, very fast indeed. And that means that he can just ignore whatever's going on with something like the Trick Room and just start going with Extreme Speeds there. That said, Kyogre's taken the field. Graham did decide to bring his in this matchup. Something like an Ice Beam would be a great answer to Rayquaza, but he's still got to be worried about the Mimikyu. You can't just leave it alone. Otherwise, it's going to start, you know, picking up some knockouts with attacks of its own.
Yeah, that Mimikyu, I mean, it can definitely knock out the Medicham. It is a fairly frail Pokemon, you know, but Kyogre, on the other hand, I think is bulky enough to take one hit from it. Jonathan, if he decides he wants to knock out that Kyogre, he might be forced to double target. He also might, you know, take a turn and protect that Rayquaza, thinking that, you know, Graham might try and double target the Rayquaza, knowing that, okay, one of these Pokemon's probably going to be guaranteed to attack it and knock it out this turn. And removing it from the field, especially now that Trick Room's up and Tapu Koko is so fast in general, would be a potential win condition for him.
Yeah, this is going to be all about calling the Protects. The Protect on Graham's side on the Kyogre. Rayquaza also using Protect here, so buying a little bit of time for itself, maybe trying to match the Protect of the Kyogre. Medicham's Bullet Punch ignoring turn order itself. That's going to land on Mimikyu. That's going to break the disguise, most importantly. So next turn, you know, Rayquaza is essentially forced to go after something like the Medicham unless Mimikyu can deal with it here. And this may be a way, the shake of the head at the beginning of the turn from Jonathan, maybe a giveaway on where that decided to go. I feel like the Mimikyu using its Z move may be overkill on the Medicham, and so we'll see exactly how this one goes. Players deep in discussion on this one.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes if you're a Mimikyu, you just really want to snuggle forever. You know, it's been a tough battle, and, you know, Kyogre has protected, so you're not going to deal much damage, but you get a nice snuggle in, and maybe that's enough.
Yeah, well,
maybe that's enough.
This attack dealing damage to the Protect could prove to be important as well, though. I'm interested in how Mimikyu is able to completely hide and consume a Kyogre in that fashion, and just toss it back out in such a casual...
a strong Pokemon.
Yeah, such a casual move. But does that bring it in range for something like an Extreme Speed and priority moves in general? That's going to be the big ask, I think, because, you know, if you leave Kyogre, if it doesn't get knocked out, then it's going to be in a very, very tough position. Jonathan really needs to capitalize on this Trick Room, and it's strange that he's capitalizing on it with potential just priority moves of his own.
I think that, I was going to say, like, maybe switching off the Kyogre here to protect it is a good call, but, you know, why protect it with a switch when you can just protect it with Psychic Terrain? If Jonathan did go for the Extreme Speed here, this would be the perfect opportunity for Kyogre to use something like an Ice Beam to... Okay, whoa,
yeah,
okay.
Jonathan has called that, basically knowing that Rayquaza isn't going to be affected by that and is going to land the Shadow Sneak on himself, activating his Berry. Rayquaza and Mimikyu both taking the hits here as Rayquaza retaliates with the Dragon Ascent. Attacking your own Pokemon, not usually what you want to do, but in this case, it seems to have worked out just fine for Jonathan.
Yeah, with the fact that Mega Rayquaza is a flying type and does not connect with the Psychic Terrain, that meant that those priority moves would still work, and Jonathan found a way to give himself just enough health to hold on through that full health Water Spout from that Kyogre and just take a ton of damage. Graham does have access to Fake Out this turn. We also saw that Bullet Punch as well. But if he picks something like the Bullet Punch, you know, Extreme Speed is still going to be faster.
Well, I mean, he can only Fake Out or go for priority moves on the Rayquaza.
On the Rayquaza anyway.
That's the only option. I mean, Jonathan can just protect Rayquaza. We'll see exactly how it goes. Yep, there's the Protect right there, not falling for anything as silly as the Fake Out. We'll see Medicham. Got to try it anyway. Got to make sure he's still keeping going. And Medicham avoids the play rough. Tapu Lele firing back with the Psyshock, and Mimikyu removed from play in this instance. This is going to be so, so close. We know that the Tapu Koko is the last Pokemon for Jonathan. And this Rayquaza in such a tough spot right now. Of course, the Psychic Terrain will be going away. That certainly helps. But this Tapu Lele doing a lot of work. I think, honestly, Jonathan could be in a position to just start Extreme Speeding his way through Graham's team. Now he's got control of the terrain. He
has to use Extreme Speed here, because if he picks any other move, a Bullet Punch from that Mega Medicham should be enough to knock it out. You know, Extreme Speed, I'm not sure what the damage calc is. I know Mega Medicham is very frail. It might be able to pick up a knockout on it, and then even though the Tapu Lele will move next, assuming it's a Choice Scarf like we saw in the earlier games, and knock out that Rayquaza, and then Tapu Koko might be able to go for a super powerful electric attack to try and knock out that Tapu Lele. But again, it's so close. It's coming down to the wire. But what an amazing play by Jonathan earlier, using that berry to get its health back.
Yeah, Rayquaza trying to protect again and failing in this instance. It is going to get knocked out by the Bullet Punch from Graham's Medicham over there. Tapu Koko landing the Electro Web on both sides there. Does move before the Tapu Lele. I believe it's still towards the end of that inverted turn order. But there it is. Psyshock from Tapu Lele into the Tapu Koko will round out this game for Graham. A back and forth game falling in the way of the Australian representative this time.
and really coming down to the wire. You know, Jonathan's speed control in that game through the form of Trick Room just was really well played, and I think really threatened Graham's approach. You know, I really loved how he also went for that sword stance before he set up the Trick Room, so he was able to move first, get the sword stance up, and then under Trick Room, again, you don't have to necessarily worry about speed when you're in your own priority tier as you are with something like an extreme speed.
There were some really good plays from Jonathan. I mean, let's just rewind it a bit. There was a couple turns where he really put the pressure on Graham. The turn where he doubled up into the Mimikyu, and then, of course, you know, the double up meant that he didn't get any damage down. The sword stance went up.
Yep.
That applied a lot of pressure, and the shadow sneak on himself, not being worried about the psychic terrain there. A really, really smart play to activate those. So we'll see exactly if Jonathan can make the adaptations. Graham, though, you know, avoiding that play rough, absolutely huge.
Oh, definitely.
Sometimes the chips do just fall in your favor. I think there was some really good plays by Graham as well to keep the pressure up throughout. And we just saw the power of Mega Medicham in a really, really big way. Those end games, those bullet punches, certainly options for him, even being able to play around his own psychic terrain.
Yeah, going into game 2, you have to wonder if Graham even gives Jonathan the option to set up Trick Room. You know, we saw Jonathan do a good job of targeting down Graham's Lunala pretty early on in that game 1, knowing that it would disrupt Mimikyu and its Trick Room and that possible end game for Jonathan. You know, having this ability to set up Trick Room late game is so important, especially when your opponent leads their Trick Room counters, assuming that, you know, that's something that you're going to want to try and do right off the bat. So I would like to see Graham sort of play the Lunala a little bit more conservatively to sort of respect that. But again, sometimes it just takes a little bit of luck. Maybe, you know, maybe try and not go all in on the protect for the Mimikyu that one turn, and he'd still be in a great spot. So these trainers, they're so close. This is such a close matchup. It's going to come down to, you know, positioning and moves and all the things that make Pokemon, I think, a really fun game.
Yeah, John was so happy when he saw that Menacing Moonraze Maelstrom hit his Rayquaza instead of his Mimikyu, knowing that the threat of it wasn't there in kind of the remaining few turns. We'll see if there's going to be any changes in how the players start the game. They look pretty much ready to get going and see exactly what they can do. The leads are on the field. Game number 2, Graham leading 1-0. His Medicham and Lunala take the field once again. And of course, that's going to be staring down the Rayquaza and Tapu Koko of Jonathan Evans. We did see the Electro Web towards the end of game number 1. And I think Jonathan may want to lean on that to try and deal with that Tailwind a little bit. And also, you know, try and deal with this Lunala's Shadow Shield as well.
That would be a great option to break Shadow Shield, especially since, you know, if the Mega Medicham decides to fake out the Tapu Koko this turn, assuming that this Rayquaza will switch out, which is not the case at all whatsoever like we saw in game 1, then he'd be in a good spot to deal more damage going into game 2. I mean, turn 2. With the Shadow Shield ability still up, Lunala can take a lot of these attacks from that Rayquaza, but with it gone, something like a Dragon Ascent might be enough to deal enough damage to just take it out. Yeah,
I think that's going to be important. And John, changing it up, not putting the Incineroar in front of the Mega Medicham this time, as both the Rayquaza and the Mega Medicham do Mega Evolve in this turn. Fake Out heading once again towards Tapu Koko. So much damage off that pure power. And Rayquaza just immediately Dragon Ascenting, realizing what a problem he was facing in the last game with this, you know, not getting those damages down early. And Lunala taking it like an absolute champion with that in play. The defenses fall on Rayquaza, and Lunala just immediately tailwinding here. So trying to set something up. I think Graham pretty happy with how that one worked out for him there.
Yeah, the Shadow Shield ability meant that his Lunala was able to survive with a considerable amount of health, and I think more importantly that Rayquaza had its defense stats dropped because of how it used Dragon Ascent that turn to deal that damage. And that's going to put Rayquaza in a really precarious position because it can take a lot of damage from really any attack that Lunala can throw at it. Yes, Graham still has to worry about that Tapu Koko. He has to worry about the threat of those Electro Webs eventually negating the speed boost that Tailwind brings. But overall, Rayquaza definitely the more offensive threat, and definitely something that I think he needs to respect, because if he ignores it this turn or otherwise lets it set up another Sword Stance, then all the speed control in the world won't matter.
Yeah, and I think the big thing here that Graham's worried about, we did see some high jump kicks in the last game. You know, maybe not the time to be bringing in the Incineroar, but he's got to be so careful about what he's doing. A double switch from John. Graham given the opportunity to basically deal as much damage as humanly possible in this turn. The Incineroar coming in for the Rayquaza. Depending on Graham's targeting, he could be in a great position or a not so great position. It's really up to it. No look on his face to see exactly what happened. High jump kick connects with Incineroar on the way in.
He went for it.
He's called it. I mean, he's really called that one. He says, you bought Incineroar in that slot before. I'm not going to let you do it. And Graham calling it again. It's going to be a menacing Moonraze Maelstrom into the Mimikyu, which has just switched in. Graham Amedee has read him like a book, cover to cover, in the same turn.
This is absolutely incredible. You know, using that Z move would have definitely ensured a knockout on that Tapu Koko, but the fact that he switched it into the Mimikyu makes it almost even better. I mean, you've been talking about, you know, the interaction between Disguise and Menacing Moonraze Maelstrom. Would you like to give our viewers at home a little lesson?
So the move Moongeist Beam ignores abilities when it's taking this into account. Because Menacing Moonraze Maelstrom is based off Moongeist Beam, it's the Z version of that move, he just doesn't care about Disguise, and Mimikyu doesn't get the benefit of that ability and is felled immediately. He's looked at game one, he's checked the contents, he's checked the index, he's even put a picture of himself in the inside dust jacket, and this book in that turn read so well. Graham up 4-2, still got to deal with Rayquaza and Tapu Koko, but Jonathan looking pretty upset with how that turn went. Tailwind is up for Graham, and he's going to be able to keep on going. That turn is one of the most offensive turns I've seen in Pokemon for a long time, that everything came up Millhouse.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, to talk to Jonathan's outs, you know, he can target down this Lunala with the Rayquaza, and judging about how much damage it did with that Dragon Ascent, while the Shadow Shield ability was still up, that could be an option, but, you know, Graham might not even be letting him get that far. This Mega Medicham is just clearing the way for him into the finals here in Columbus.
Yeah, well, Rayquaza is staring down a 4 versus 1. It's may not even be afforded the opportunity. It's got to sit through a Moongeist Beam to start with. Moongeist Beam not doing enough, but at least John's opening the door for himself. Swords Dance there, certainly an option, but at every turn he's just going to be facing down 2 attacks. Really, looking at Graham, he's got to be feeling pretty good about that turn.
Well, the Extreme Speed cannot damage the Lunala. Again, it's a normal type move. Lunala is a ghost type Pokemon. So that's one Pokemon that he will have to take an attack from at least. He can certainly use that Extreme Speed to target down that Medicham and most likely knock it out given how frail it is. But then there's still potentially the Kyogre in the back. You know, there's still potentially the Tapu Lele. And I mean, if you're just going to go for these Swords Dance, like this is your win condition. I think he needs to try and get this Rayquaza up to as maximum of attack as possible.
He's trying to roar and it's not there. He's roared himself, bringing the Tapu Lele out into play. That is absolutely audacious there. Making sure Extreme Speed can't be used. You know, he's going to have to Dragon Ascent every time and lowering his defenses. Graham chuckling away. We were like, why are you fake outing? That's so silly. Just deal some damage. He doesn't care. He wants to set up that Psychic Terrain. Lunala's going to leave the field as Medicham comes back for round number 2. And we'll see where the Dragon Ascent decides to go if he's afforded the opportunity. Doesn't look that way.
I mean, that Moonblast connects, that Moonblast knocks out, and just like that, Graham Amedee from Australia is advancing to the finals here in Columbus, Ohio at the North American International Championships.
Graham Amedee, the clock does not strike midnight for you yet, sir. You will be coming back tomorrow. This sense of time, completely bananas. Fantastic games. John putting up such a good fight in game number 1, finding those opportunities, having that play rough miss, and it's something that's come up a few times in games I've been on this weekend. If you use moves that aren't 100% accurate, you are kind of at risk of falling short and not getting that all the way there. It doesn't hit. The Mega Medicham stays around and Graham ekes out game 1. Game 2, on the other hand, Graham does not slow down. That
was one of the most, I think, decisive victories I've seen in a Pokemon game this weekend. I mean, that